calling this meeting to order. Mr. Espinoza, can you please call the roll?
Thank you. Councilmember Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilmember Padilla is currently absent, and Councilmember Hutt.
Here.
2 members and a quorum.
Wonderful, thank you. Now let's go ahead and move to public comment. Mr. Costello Vega, can you please read the instructions for public comment?
Yes, Madam Chair. We will now take public comment. When your name is called, please come to the podium and state which of the agenda items you would like to speak on, and if you would like to offer general public comment. You will have 1 minute per item to speak, up to 2 minutes total for multiple agenda items, and 1 minute for general public comment. We will let you know when your time is up. When speaking on the agenda items, you must be on topic. If you are making a general public comment, you must address topics within the jurisdiction of this committee. If you are not speaking on topic, or if we cannot tell if you are speaking on topic, you will get 1 brief warning from the chair or me. If you do not immediately get back on topic, or again straight off topic, the chair will cut you off and you will forfeit the rest of your speaking time. Thank you.
Audit LA, if you could come up to the podium.
Hello. Okay, I want all items, please, and public comment.
You have 3 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you. First one I'm curious about is this vertical content creators. I'm a vertical content creator. I'd like to know more about that. So I hope you do more for content creators, because I think it's really important to bring government to the people and the people to government. Like right now, we've got people all around the planet interested in a city public works meeting. Can you imagine? That seems crazy, right? But it's not. People all over the world are interested in this stuff. And, depending on, it could be about anything. We talk about Scientology and they're interested in that, but it could be anything. So it should get to the public. I also want to talk about your sidewalks with the Willits decision case. Okay, I am, I'm a person who calls in about the Willits stuff, and, it's a 10-year wait, for a 10-year wait. Ms. Hernandez, Ms. Hutt, it's ridiculous. And like right now, I just spun out. It was so scary. I was trying to go see if the Dianetics people were over at the little, I forget what it's called, but I can never remember the name. And I couldn't get over this little like hill thing, like a broken sidewalk hill. You know how they do that? They try to patch it up. And so I had to rev it to try to get over it, and it spun me out. And I almost and then I'm going at full speed, so I almost drove into the street. Who knows? I could have been hit by a car, right? It's just ridiculous. It shouldn't be 10 years. They need to do better. When it gets to 1, is that my public comment part?
Okay. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, sir. I finally get to see him in person. Okay. And so when it comes to that, and as far as the nuisance properties, we've been telling you over and over again that, entities that shut down streets when they don't have full permits and not notifying their community of shutdowns is a nuisance. The other day I was there I think it was a fake shutdown for that one day, and I saw about probably 15 cars having to turn around because they couldn't get in. Also the loud music, where neighbors 100 times have complained about music that shakes their walls and vibrates their bones. That's a nuisance. Okay. I'm here to talk about, I was told that people don't really realize when I'm saying that people are making slave wages, oh, well, they're just church volunteers. No, I don't think you understand what a Sea Org member is, okay? Sea Org members, it's like a paramilitary thing. They don't get to, like a volunteer, right? You get to go home if you want to. You can volunteer that day if you want to or not. But this is a paramilitary where you're up at a certain hour, you go to bed when they tell you, you have to muster 3 times because they got to make sure no one's escaped. All the cameras around there, it's not to keep us out, it's to keep them in. And if they do try to leave, they will drag you back. They either coerce you, force you, and then threaten you that the world, you'll never make it out there. It's so much coercion. Okay, and the city says you're not allowed to work on permitted and things with, there's no religious exemption on the labor. So this is one way we can help Sea Org members, is to demand that they pay them full wages, because what they're doing is unfair, and it's just, please, it's got to stop. Thank you.
If anyone else has signed up for public comment, if you could please line up on the left of the room. All right, there are no more speakers on the queue, Madam Chair.
Wonderful, thank you. Colleagues, today we have a total of 13 items on the agenda. If there are no objections or questions, I propose to take items 4 through 8, and 10 through 13 on consent. Councilwoman Hutt, are there any questions on those items, comments? Wonderful, thank you. Seeing as there are none, Mr. Espinoza, can you please call can you please read the items into the record and call the roll?
Thank you. So item number 4 is the motion from Councilmember Blumenfield and Harris Dawson relative to exploring opportunities to assist vertical content creators by establishing a grant program that provides upfront funding to incentivize local production. Item number 5 is a resolution from Council Members McOsker and Blumenfield relative to declaring the property located at 228 North Gaffey Street a public nuisance. Item number 6 is a report from the city engineer and resolutions relative to the rejection of a portion of future street easement as public street and acceptance of a portion of future street easement as public street on 4539 to 4545 West Santa Monica Boulevard. Item number 7 is a motion from Council Members Rodriguez and Lee relative to designating the intersection at Hubbard Street and Eldridge Avenue as Irene Tovar Square. Item number 8 is a motion from Council Members Rodriguez, Soto Martinez, and Hernandez relative to designating the intersection at West Sunset Boulevard and Lemoyne Street as Sandra Figueroa Villa Square. Item number 10 is a motion from Council Members McOsker and Hutt relative to designating the intersection of East 102nd Street and Courtney Street in Watts as Franklin Square. Item number 11 is a report from the Bureau of Sanitation relative to the cause of the sewer line rupture and subsequent sewage spill at 2700 South Cresta Place. Item number 12 is a motion from Council Members McOsker and Lee relative to extending the temporary closure of 101st Street between Figueroa Street and Hoover Street for an additional 18 months for reason of public safety. And the last item, item number 13, is a motion from Council Members McOsker and Hernandez relative to designating the intersection of M Street and Banning Boulevard in Wilmington as Seaman Square.
Thank you, Mr. Espinoza. And just for clarity, for item 4, I recommend we adopt the motion. Item 5, I recommend we adopt the resolution. Item 6, I recommend we adopt the Bureau of Engineering's recommendations. Items 7, 8, and 10, I recommend we adopt the motions. And for item 11, I recommend we note and file the Bureau of Sanitation's report. Lastly, for item 12 and 13, I recommend we adopt the motions. Colleagues, can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mr. Espinoza, can you please call the roll?
Thank you. Councilmember Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilmember Padilla is currently absent, and Councilmember Hutt.
Aye.
2 ayes, and these items are approved as you stated earlier.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Espinoza. Now we will have 3 items that we will be discussing. And we will begin with items 1, 3, and 9 before we move into our closed session item. Mr. Espinoza, can you please read those items into the record?
Thank you. Item number 1 is a verbal presentation by the Bureau of Engineering and Bureau of Street Services on the sidewalk repair program. Item number 3 is an environmental impact report, statement of overriding considerations, and Board of Public Works report relative to various actions regarding the sidewalk repair program and California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, adoption for the project. And item number 4 is a motion from Council Members Hernandez and Yaroslavsky relative to the addition of 1 civil engineering associate for resolution authority for the Bureau of Engineering sidewalk repair program to provide technical expertise, knowledge, and skills, and supplement the capacity of the Bureau's ADA coordinator.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Espinoza. Councilwoman Hutt, today we have the Bureau of Street Services, Bureau of Engineering, and the City Attorney joining us to initiate the first of many forthcoming discussions on sidewalk repair. The goal of today's discussion is to better understand the current process of the sidewalk repair program and the broader landscape that we operate in as a result of the Willett settlement. We also want to hear about the meaningful work our bureaus have put into our sidewalks over the last 25 years. We will hear from BSS, BOE, and the city attorney as they walk us through different components and help us set the foundation for future discussions. Like you, colleagues, I share your frustrations with our city's process. I know we all want to get to a place where it doesn't take us 10 years to fix a sidewalk, and we're investing more in, where we're investing more in proactive repairs than in liability payouts. However, I want to reiterate that today is about learning the landscape, not only for ourselves, but also for our constituents and the public. In a future committee meeting, we will have deeper discussions on the roadblocks, challenges, and potential actionable solutions that we can bring forth. BOE and BSS are already working on an asset management report that will help guide and offer options on next steps. I want our questions to be thoughtful and will ask that you leave substantive questions for the end, but please feel free to ask clarifying questions throughout. With that said, I would like us to get started with presentations. And I know we have representatives from all departments, but can we have representatives from BSS please join us at the table? Oh, wonderful, thank you. Please take us a moment to introduce yourself, and thank you for being here. And as we begin today's discussion, I just want to make sure that we go through an overview of the sidewalk repair holistically, covering everything from landscape before the Willits case and today. BSS, can you please start our discussion with a brief history of how sidewalk repair worked prior to the Willits case, including your process and the impact? But please introduce yourself. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, council members. Shirley Lau, Executive Officer of the Bureau of Street Services. Thank you for having us. I'll go ahead and get started on, I have a very brief presentation, but exactly I'm going to go over what happened pre-Willits. And so let me start with the second slide here. So in fiscal year 2000-2001, the Bureau of Street Services was allocated funding and position authorities to start a sidewalk repair program. And how we did it back in the day is we did it similarly to our resurfacing program, where we had an allocation formula, similarly to how we go to all the council offices now. We went to all 15 council offices and explained to them what their allocation was annually and requested the council offices to submit locations where we would estimate the sidewalk needed to be constructed, and our BSS staff would assess each location, provide the estimate, and go back to the council office to ensure they would like those locations performed annually. So the council office was very involved. I think they went and looked at, areas of most need and then provided that to the Bureau of Street Services. Between fiscal years 05-06 through 07-08, there was also a 50-50 sidewalk repair program that was established, and that program split the cost between the property owner and the city. And we were also provided additional resolution authorities and off-budget allocations for that program. And the 50-50 program, people would sign up, and then we would go out, make the assessment, whether it would be, one crew would spend a day, and then we would provide an estimate of the labor, materials, and equipment for that work. We would explain to the property owner it would be, say, $1,000, you would pay $500. And so that's how the 50-50 program went forward. It was quite a successful program, but it was only funded for those few years. And, the demand was quite high during the time we had that. Unfortunately, both programs were both eliminated in fiscal year 2009-10 due to the recession. So just a little bit context for the sidewalk repair responsibilities. And I know my colleagues, the Bureau of Engineering and the City Attorney's Office will go into this a little more in depth. They also have that information. So under federal law, under the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990, the city is responsible for ensuring the remediation and maintenance of city pedestrian facilities to ADA compliance. Additionally, the California Street and Highway Code 5610 establishes that adjacent property owners are responsible for the maintenance of sidewalks. Our LA Municipal Code in conformance with the state law, LAMC 62.104B also establishes that the owner of a lot is responsible for maintenance of the adjacent sidewalk, driveway approach, curb, the curb return, and also needs to be in compliance with ADA. And due to the Willett Settlement Agreement, the LAMC 62.104.1 establishes the city engineer, who's the head of the Bureau of Engineering, as the administrator of the sidewalk repair program, and that's, BOE will go into that, that's post, or when the Willett settlement happened. Lastly, this is just a kind of a metrics of what happened at the Bureau of Street Services. So that's pre-Willits, the sidewalk repair, 2000 to 01, that's the first fiscal year it started. I provided, so the total in the 9 years, we finished 606 miles of sidewalk repair based on the sidewalk repair program. And then the 50/50 program, we based it on locations, and it was 2,389 locations. As you can see, we were provided positional authorities throughout all the years. And the budget allocation on the very right column is annual allocation. I do not include the off-budget funds, but I can say that we generally did receive probably between $1.5 million to $3.5 million annually on off-budget money. We did have CDBG funds that were provided, and also there were probably other interim transfers by council offices during that time. And that concludes my presentation. I'm open for any questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. Quick question. For this document, is it possible to add a bar at the end showing liability costs? And seeing if
Yes.
there's any correlation there? Because I know in 1 year we paid like, what, $73 million in sidewalk liability payouts? I think that was 2023, perhaps? What?
Certainly, I can go back and speak with our city attorney who provides us the liability information to see if they can give us the information for that time.
Great, that would be good. Just because I know that we are paying significant amounts out for that, but this is great. My question is, I have a few. How did the city decide which sidewalks to repair through the program in the early 2000s? What were the inputs so that regular Angelinos could notify the city of sidewalk issues in their neighborhood?
So predominantly, we went through the council office. So the council office, I think, reached out to neighborhood councils and other constituents who had locations. And so the council office provided BSS. We met annually and provided BSS with the locations they would like us to review. So I think it was a very involved, with the council office, similarly to how we do our pavement preservation program right now.
Wonderful, thank you. Through the 50/50 program, was there insight to what worked best to get property owners to participate? What incentives were provided? Do we know if these lessons learned were brought into the rebate program that we now use today?
So at the time, the 50/50 program was limited to just residential properties, property owners only. I think we did, I dug into this very old file someone had, and we did see brochures. So I think it was, people were educated on what this program could do. So it was in high demand. We actually did not have enough budget to keep going for the program. I think there were more demand than, we had crews for. I think the incentive is just that you got your sidewalks fixed faster. So lessons learned. So I think one of the current program is managed by the Bureau of Engineering, but back then, I think one of the main differences is back then our crews would be doing the work, but right now, and BOE can correct me if I'm wrong, but the property owners hires a private contractor to do the work. So I think that's one of the main differences that I see.
Great, thank you. Do you have any insight into how much money was provided to the program off budget?
Yes, so off budget, I know the CDBG fund allocated roughly 1.8 million to 3.6 million over most of the years, not every year. And I think there were other interim transfers from council offices as well.
Okay, wonderful. Um, And my last question is, but I'm sure more will come up. What did the city do for sidewalk repair for the years between fiscal year '09 and 2015, when the Willits settlement was signed?
Right, so the Bureau was not funded, and I believe interim sidewalk repairs, mainly consisting of using asphalt to patch the uplifted sidewalk, what was a practice that was used. That was halted because these interim repairs did not really remove the barrier to accessibility, and it doesn't really alleviate the city of liability. So we did not, it was not a good interim repair.
Understood. Yes, I've seen some of those. There's one on my block. I see that. Councilwoman Hutt.
Thank you,
Shirley.
Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions. How does the updated program with the legal obligations under the Willits versus City of Los Angeles settlement agreement work? How will we see these updates get us to the end? And do we know what the end is? Like,
For the Willits?
yeah.
Yeah, so the Bureau of Engineering they have a whole presentation on that, if you would like them to start with that on the Willits.
That's up to the chair.
What part?
I just want to know how much more sidewalk
Oh,
repair.
BOE will come
Yeah.
right after, and
So wait.
it's going to go all through that.
I can. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Shirley.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, wonderful. Now I would like to invite the city attorney to join us, Adina Hopenstand. Thank you. Please take a moment to introduce yourself. And then before we start, I'd like to share that we will be going into closed session for item 2 pertaining to the Willits case. So I asked that the city attorney let us know if any questions that arise are better suited to be discussed in closed session. Ms. Hopenstein, can you please start us off with part 2 of this discussion by walking us through the origins of the Willits lawsuit, the city's legal obligations under the settlement, and the compliance criteria that guides our current sidewalk repair program? I'd also like information about our liability costs due to dangerous conditions on our sidewalks over the last 5 years.
Certainly. Before I begin, with the chair's permission, if I can ask for 2 items. One, it'd be helpful if Bureau of Engineering could have a representative, because I might refer to them to answer your questions more
Sure.
fully.
Thank you.
And second, if I can get some tech support, as there's, I think, a single slide for the liability numbers that you want me to address, and I don't know where it is on the computer. Okay, so
Thank
with
you. We'll
that,
get that locked in.
thank you. Adina Hopenstand, General Counsel to Public Works, including Bureau of Engineering and Bureau of Street Services. So you got a little bit of an introduction from Street Services as to kind of the history of some of the key legislation relating to the Willits, that led up to the Willits settlement. So what am I referring to? The 1973 Rehabilitation Act, that is also referred to as Section 504. That is part of the Willits case. That's why I'm mentioning it here, and it applies to agencies that receive federal funds and therefore have obligations relating to accessibility. You have, of course, in 1992, the Americans with Disability Act, and then there were some key legal decisions in the Ninth Circuit, which is the federal circuit where California is, up in Sacramento, in a case called Barden versus City of Sacramento, finding that sidewalks are a program under the ADA, and that a city, in that case Sacramento, in our case Los Angeles, has obligations to under the ADA with respect to the sidewalks. So that's a little bit of the backdrop in terms of dates. But in August 2010, that really is the initiation of the Willits lawsuit. At the time, there actually were some companion state court actions that were consolidated, kind of dealt with together in litigation. Those were called Carter, Famey, Pineda, and Griffin. Griffin is related to Willits most closely. But those were all cases, although litigated in different fora, the Willits in federal court, the rest in state court, that were related to accessibility issues on predominantly sidewalks, but there were driveway aprons, curb ramps. Those were allegations. Those state cases were resolved by settlement, and part of the Willits settlement was conditioned on resolution and acceptance of those cases. So just wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor that there was actually quite a bit of litigation at the time in the late 2000s relating to accessibility and sidewalk issues. And we're here to discuss Willits and the sidewalk repair program, which is a Willits implementation program. It was interesting in the presentation because I see that Street Services referred to their pre-Willits as a sidewalk repair program. And just want to note, and I'm sure that's something that Bureau of Engineering will address, that it is confusing because the sidewalk repair program that exists today in the city is a Willits implementation program. So to that end, it is framed by the Willits settlement, which you've asked me to address. So I will outline in broad strokes what those terms were. So the certified class, the settlement class is slightly different, but I think the certified class captures the essence of it. All persons with mobility disabilities who have been denied access to pedestrian rights of way in the city of Los Angeles as a result of defendants' policies and practices with regard to its pedestrians' right of way and disability access. The case is about people with mobility disabilities and their right to access. And so that frames the way the sidewalk repair program is approached and the settlement is approached as well. At the time, it was estimated that there was a class of about 280,000 people with mobility disabilities in the city that were subject to the settlement. As I think the big term of the settlement, both in time and in materiality, is that the city, under the settlement, is obligated to spend over $1.367 billion over 30 years. It's a 30-year settlement. And on August 25th, 2016 is when the court gave final approval for the settlement. So you'll hear 2016, 2017 is essentially the beginning of when the city's settlement obligations began, although you might hear from engineering, and we can also address too, that the city tried to get a head start, frankly, on its obligations and started doing implementation in advance, expecting there to be the resolution of the settlement, which happened. The compliance period for the settlement, because remember I said it's 30 years, begins on July 1 of each calendar year and runs from July 1 through June 30. So we just completed our 8th year. And so the annual commitment associated with each year does increase at certain portions. So I may look to my engineering counterpart to say what this current year is, because I think it may have changed from year 8.
Thank you. 37.543 million. Julia Sanchez de la Vega with the Bureau of Engineering.
Can you start over again? We couldn't hear you in the
Oh,
beginning.
my apologies. Yes, it is this year in year 9 of the settlement. It is $37.543 million.
Please take a moment to introduce yourself.
Or I apologize. 35.743. Excuse me.
And Julia Sanchez de la Vega from the Bureau of Engineering just spoke.
Thank you.
So the annual commitment, as I mentioned, so Julia just shared this year's annual commitment, which again is a difference because they do have increases over the 30 years, but that over the 30-year period is to total the 1.36 or 37 billion number that I gave to you.
Do y'all have background on why it increased every year? Was it for inflation or?
I was not part of the negotiation. I know that it's baked into the settlement. I can assume that it,
Hi, Ted Jordan from the City Attorney's Office. It's the shorthand way of thinking about it is $31 million a year for 30 years.
Got it.
$31 million a year for 30 years. In order to maintain the sort of spending power of that $31 million a year for 30 years, every 5 years it steps up. But it's purely an inflationary adjustment to get the value of that $31 million a year across all 30 years.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
and while I'll run through the essential terms of the agreement, I did want to share that they're publicly available in Council File 11-0573 at the motion dated April 1, 2015. There's a PDF online, so for members of the public in this committee, should you want to consult that at a later time, that's where you can find it, in addition to the settlement agreement being in its full form available online otherwise. So the settlement agreement, as I mentioned, is a 30-year term. You heard from my colleague Ted Jordan about it's the roughly $31 million a year, although it has this escalator to achieve the spending power over time. It was accompanied by a release of claims by class members. Members who experience mobility disabilities cannot sue the city for ADA type, the claims that were subject to this lawsuit, because they've released those claims so long as we are under and implementing the settlement, and which we are still within that term. There is an access request program, which you will hear more about, and you'll hear about that from my colleagues at Bureau of Engineering. And you heard a little bit about it from public comment, but that's where members, individuals who are members of the class or people on behalf of members of the class will make complaints or indicate barriers to access, areas of the sidewalk or pedestrian facilities that they claim are barriers to access, and they go into a queue. There is a minimum allocation under the settlement that hasn't changed. It requires negotiation agreement of the parties to change, of a minimum allocation of 20% of that, what I'm going to refer to as the 31 million, the annual commitment on a given year, towards access requests. And in terms of delivering on those access requests, the city shall use its best efforts and, to the extent feasible, complete each access request within 120 days of receipt. Now, despite the city's best efforts and to the extent feasible, you have heard, and you probably will hear more, that there are a number of access requests that are still in a queue. And so the city may exercise its best efforts, but sometimes the best efforts don't achieve that result. All program access improvements have to comply with the ADA standards or the California Building Code. That's a requirement within the settlement. The annual commitment cannot be used for certain activities like street resurfacing, street widening, new street creation, and anything that essentially isn't a program access improvement or pedestrian access improvement. There is $5 million allocated of the annual commitment for curb ramp construction and curb ramp installation or remediation. There is an ability of the city to have a pour-over provision, and Bureau of Engineering can comment on that if you'd like, but essentially the city can pay more in a given fiscal year or compliance year and take credit for that extra payment in a later year should it choose, as long as at the end of the 30 years we have paid the full amount. There is... We do, I don't know if we've taken the pour-over credit, but we are accruing pour-over credit.
What does that mean?
Yeah, for each year that we expend beyond the minimum annual commitment, we're able to bank that, for future years where we may fall below. So, for example, we did have 1 year in compliance year 2 of the program where we dipped into our pour over to about $2 million extent as of June 30th of last year. As the end of compliance year 8, we've accumulated $73.4 million of pour over balance.
So we put in a lot more, but we're in year 9. Where else are we going to pour it over into? If it goes to 10 years, does that mean we're going to double up on 10th year? Or
it gives the flexibility of the city, should there be a budgetary need, to rely on the pour over credit to achieve that, otherwise that annual commitment. So right now the city has this credit banked. I don't know if there's an express intent to rely on that credit, but right now the city has budgeted amounts for this next annual, the next annual commitment. So I don't believe there's a pour over reliance, at least for the next fiscal year.
understood. And then for the pour over, who dictates how that moves? Is that a city motion, or is that under governance by the settlement?
It's under governance by the settlement. All the monies in the annual commitment, whether you're relying on the pour over amount or any of the expenditures, have to be for the purposes of the settlement. And so it's not like it can be then repurposed for a different reason. It's for implementation of the settlement and to achieve that ultimate 1.367 billion in 30 years figure.
Of course, yeah. And that's why I ask, I'm like, are we going to go over that figure? Like, are we just going to keep investing, if we have some resources? But I'll pass it back to you. Go ahead.
There are also program access improvement prioritization, and also within the access request program, there's prioritization on how access requests are handled. But on top of what the settlement specifies, it does recognize the city has discretion in how it's spending its money, subject to the four corners of the settlement. And to that end, should you have questions, Bureau of Engineering can also elaborate on council-adopted prioritization in terms of spending and pardon me, in terms of prioritization of it's for access requests?
Yeah, we have currently prioritizations adopted by the council for our access requests, for our city facility subprogram, and for general program access improvement. They have different repair matrices.
So there are also terms in the settlement governing new construction and alterations, which essentially is the city has to ensure its new construction and alterations comply with the ADA and applicable California law. So new construction and alterations do not, for example, you were asking about uses of settlement money. Settlement money does not go towards compliance for new construction alterations. That's on the city's dime and should proceed accordingly. There's also a requirement for an access and construction database to essentially give more visibility to class members and potentially class council too on construction activities within the city for monitoring reasons, and so that they understand what's being built, is it compliant, are all the ADA components taken care of, et cetera. There is also a requirement for an ADA coordinator for the pedestrian right-of-way, and we have the ADA coordinator. The city hired that person as part of the settlement agreement, and she is in this room today and will probably speak during Bureau of Engineering's portion or at some point when there are questions. There's, of course, class council continued monitoring and reporting and fees that the city pays to class council that are spelled out in the settlement. They're capped on a yearly basis, but relating to their ability to make sure that the city is complying with its obligations under the settlement. There's a dispute resolution procedure specified under the settlement, but those are the basic framework for what the settlement allows in terms of substance, and happy to address any questions as to the summary of the settlement or the context for the settlement, but otherwise I'm happy to move to the liability discussion that you also in your introductory remarks indicated you'd like me to discuss or address.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, let's go ahead and go to it.
So it's already displayed. What you see here are liability payouts. So this would be judgments as well as any settlements in the fiscal years indicated relating to sidewalk, like trip and fall for uplifts or trip and fall that are non-tree related. So they were captured in this. What you see is by the numbers themselves, I have no insight into how many cases these numbers represent, et cetera, but just the raw data that there has been a steady increase in the last, in each fiscal year for our liability payouts. So just in the last 5 years, ending fiscal year 24 to 25, there's over $80 million, almost $82 million in liability payouts associated with sidewalk issues.
Thank you. That's a lot of money. Yes, please.
Does someone have a calculation on what it would have cost to fix those same places that we've had the lawsuits on?
That I don't know. I mean, it is often the case that after there is a liability payout, those locations do get addressed by the city, but I don't know that there's been any maybe, I don't know if Street Services and
Data
Engineering have
collection
that
on
number, data collection on, in the aggregate, what the remediation and the addressing the issues cost. But, you know, with liability payouts, recall it's both money and somebody got injured in order to get that payout. So there's an injury to a constituent, unfortunately, as well as the fact that it hurts the city's public fisc.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In broad strokes, can you share how the city has refined its development criteria for qualified sidewalks for repair under the settlement?
I think for that, I would turn to engineering if they have any insight on, and whether this is a place to discuss the council adopted priorities or not.
Yeah, we have the components of the program that we issue largely based and implement largely based on the budget adopted by the mayor and council. So we have the disabled access requests, which currently constitute a large portion of our program and budget. Close to 70–80% of the repairs we completed last fiscal year, and those are request-based and prioritized in line with the council-adopted prioritization. We have the rebate program, which is on the order of $1 to $2 million a year in expenditures towards that program, and we are those are addressed on a first come, first served basis. And our city facilities program is to repair frontages and remediate sidewalks and pedestrian facilities adjacent to city-owned and operating buildings. So depending on the city budget, we may have proprietary departments, libraries or others identified with funding identified to perform that work. And based on the funding received, we'll look at the city facilities and select those which score the highest in the council-adopted prioritization and proceed with those based on available funding. Prior to this fiscal year, we haven't otherwise addressed general program improvements or general repairs across the city other than in certain periods having curb ramp funding. We have, as Adina, I believe, mentioned, a $5 million obligation annually under the settlement to expend on curb ramps. So currently we're focusing on curb ramps that were submitted as access requests in order to meet that obligation.
Great, thank you. Can you give me a little more details on the council priorities? And I ask that because the council perhaps we are not the engineering experts, we're not the sidewalk experts. And so I just want to know what the priorities are out of the council, and if that falls in line with strategically meeting the needs of the Willett settlement. Because I know we got our priorities, but does that match with what we need to do?
Yeah, we have worked to ensure that the sub-program prioritization not only meets the requirements of the settlement, but also factors in some of the city priorities. We're currently working to report back to the council to recommend changes to both our access request program, our general program access improvements, and our city facility scoring to better incorporate factors such as equity and damage severity. I'll talk a little bit about in my presentation our public right-of-way assessment efforts, but we're also working to gather damage severity information in large scale on the city sidewalks, which we haven't had before, which will be an excellent tool in helping our program as well as other city programs prioritize their improvements.
Beautiful, thank you. Councilwoman?
No.
Great, thank you.
Questions?
Wonderful. So now we've already gone Ms. Julia Sanchez de la Vega here. And in this next part of the presentation, I would like you to walk us through the steps in the current process of the sidewalk repair program. I want you to give us a general timeline from start to finish on how the sidewalk gets repaired and highlight the work that BOE and other key departments and bureaus have been able to accomplish over the years. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you again for the opportunity today. Julia Sanchez de la Vega with the Bureau of Engineering, manager over our sidewalk repair program, implementing the Willett settlement. And I appreciate, thank you, Adina, for really helping clarify that although the names are the same, our sidewalk repair program is very different, and we feel, Willett's implementation program is the most appropriate way to understand the scope of our program. So as a reminder, the city of Los Angeles, it's an extremely large sidewalk system. We have the nation's largest system of streets, and of course, right up adjacent to that is the nation's largest system of sidewalk, equivalent to traveling the California coast more than 10 times. And under California law and municipal code, the private property owner is generally responsible for maintenance of the sidewalk. Under federal law, the city also maintains some responsibilities, such as ensuring the remediation and maintenance of the city's pedestrian facilities to ADA compliance. The city made a historic commitment towards its constituents with mobility disabilities, as Adina with the city attorney's office shared in 2015. And we are currently at an annual commitment of $35.7 million in year 9 of the program. And through this program, we remove barriers to access for individuals with mobility disabilities. So this includes broken sidewalks, missing and accessible curb ramps, and cracks in the sidewalks. The sidewalk repair program is funded. We have our own schedule in the city budget, which annually funds our program and ensures our meeting the annual commitment. Shown here is the adopted budget for the sidewalk repair program for this fiscal year. The city is committed about $4.5 million above and beyond the minimum annual commitment to a total of $40.2 million. And these funds come from a variety of sources, principally, as you'll note, the general fund, Measure R, SB1, and Measure M. Breaking down a little bit, the SRP budget for this year, about half of it, or $21 million, funds city efforts and city staffing related to the sidewalk repair program. So predominantly that's the Bureau of Street Services, who has crews, as well as Urban Forestry Division resources that support our tree work and some of our construction. And we have the Bureau of Engineering and Contract Administration, who manage the program and provide oversight of our contracted packages, and other entities such as the City Attorney, Department on Disability, Board of Public Works, Department of Transportation that support different aspects of the program. We have $135,000 for policy compliance related to our EIR compliance, which we'll be discussing in that item today on the agenda. We have $12.5 million for contractual services that are issued to construction. We issue this in a variety of ways via larger packages awarded by the Board of the Public Works. We have a community level contract with 34 contractors that we rotate through to support sidewalk repairs, and are working right now in the coming weeks to establish a job order style contract through the Board of Public Works to help further expedite and support the program. So for consulting services, this fiscal year, we have a little over $5 million. And then finally, we have our proprietary departments, which have been taxed to perform pedestrian facility repairs adjacent to their facilities in support of the program. That includes LAWA and the Port of Los Angeles for this fiscal year. Yes.
How much of all these buckets out of the 40 million goes to actual construction materials and labor?
Yeah, that's a good portion of the Bureau of Street Services funding. It goes towards their UFD and Bureau of Street Services crews. In the contractual services, in $12 million, and the proprietary department commitments are sort of the hard construction dollars. Yes.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So I think as we touched upon earlier, we have the access request program, rebate program, city facility program. The city also, beyond those programs, does accept general report of sidewalk requests. Those are not part of, or those are outside of the sidewalk repair program.
They just exist on the list.
That information. So moving on, delving a little bit into our SRP access request program, which is receiving requests by or on behalf of individuals with mobility disabilities. When those are received, they come in through MyLA 311 as an indicated to be as an access request. DOD, or Department on Disability, performs an initial screening to ensure they're eligible under the criteria in the settlement. Next, the request goes to the Bureau of Engineering to look at the barrier as reported and determine the scope of required to remediate the barrier. Once we do that, we log it in our system and a council-adopted prioritization score is generated. For access requests, that involves using this matrix here, the access request prioritization matrix, which assigns 15 points for a barrier in a residential neighborhood, 15 points for a barrier within 500 feet of a bus or transit stop, and 15 points for a barrier that has been in the queue or request for over 120 days, which right now we stand at a queue of over 4,000 unaddressed access requests. And when funding is available, access requests are pulled from the queue based on priority score and dates submitted, the oldest being pulled first. You know, I want to address a common misconception, including one we heard during public comment today, the point that it takes 10 years to fix a sidewalk under the program. I really want to clarify that what this means for the committee. You know, a severe barrier can be remediated by SRP in as quickly as 18 to 12 months. On occasion, can take longer if it's particularly complex. And this has been through streamlining efforts and innovation that we've implemented since the inception of the program. But what most requesters are frustrated by is the 10+ year wait time that's projected currently for medium or low priority locations. The program, unfortunately, is not funded at a level to regularly remediate anything less than a high priority barrier. We are obligated under the settlement agreement to provide an estimated date by which the city expects the access barrier to be removed or addressed. So the reality is for us as of today is that high priority barriers as they come in, since we're receiving requests at a rate of about 3 times of what we address in a given year, 3 times as many requests coming in as we address in that given year, that higher priority barriers will come in and jump the line and really make any estimates for lower priority unreliable.
Which is really good to know, because then we could say like, yeah, see if you fund it, we can do it. So I think I'm really glad you bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have worked, you know, as I've alluded to, since program inception to refine our processes. Despite, you know, having limited resources and a large intake of requests, we really strive to be, with the resources we have, as responsive as possible to individuals with mobility disabilities. So at the start of the sidewalk repair program, the city came in, and when we received a report of a barrier, we remediated the entire side of the block on which the request was located. And this was, you know, helped us while we were there be efficient and address the, you know, the whole block at once, but of course, slow down our time to respond quickly given the scope of work for each request. So we brought the program down to frontage only and to addressing if we receive a request for a barrier, being ensuring to bring the full frontage on which that barrier was reported into ADA compliance. And then later in the past 2 years, to be even more responsive, we've moved to a barrier-only scoping, and based on feedback from our city and an oversight and class council. So now we only address the barrier as reported to bring it into full compliance and transition appropriately from there to existing potentially non-compliant improvements. So with this work and with these sub-programs, what have we accomplished to date? I'm happy to report under the SRP, starting with our pre-settlement work in 2014 through today, we have remediated over 3,600 sites. This includes remediating over 1,600 barriers as reported by individuals with mobility disabilities, over 540 city facility sites, making those fully accessible and bringing those into compliance with full standards. General program access improvements, primarily curb ramps, and rebate. We've had 857 individuals take advantage of our rebate program. And through that, we've worked to preserve trees, preserving over 8,000 trees, removing just 893, and planting 1,861 in their place. So a total of 204 miles of sidewalk and 2,900 curb ramps completed. But we know our work is not done. We live, work, and play in the city of Los Angeles and work to make our facilities public rights of way accessible to all. And the way we're working to further improve and streamline our program include by number one, working to reinstate our streamlining environmental impact report on today's agenda. Number two, as I mentioned, is working to establish that job order style or rapid pedestrian facility repair program style contracting through the Board of Public Works. And to let your committee and the council know that those recommendations to the Board of Public Works include the forwarding of a recommendation to the council that all pedestrian facility repairs by the SRP be declared a matter of urgent necessity to support the delivery and expediting of those projects. We're, as I mentioned, proposing revisions to our prioritization matrices across the program to not only better serve individuals with mobility disabilities, but also the priorities of the city. And we'll be coming with revisions to our damage severity matrix. This helps the city prioritize what are, mild, medium, and severe or very severe barriers, and really based on how those are experienced by individuals with mobility disabilities. We are pursuing a citywide evaluation of the city's public right-of-way pedestrian facilities that will facilitate SRP site selection. And we are going to be proposing recommendations on an asset management framework for the city that will help leverage all the programs and have recommendations for how we can better leverage and improve and coordinate work on the city's pedestrian facilities. And we also have finally a effort to increase our compliance efforts and oversight through adding staff under our public right-of-way ADA coordinator. So anyone wishing to submit a request to the program can do so via MileA 311. We have the website, milea311.lacity.gov, or can call 311 or the Department on Disability at 213-202-2764. We also have a website, sidewalks.lacity.gov, where individuals can learn more about our sub-programs, can also look at our reporting and mapping. We have our whole history of work of the program, as well as our upcoming projects that are shown and mapped, and photos of the work we've done and efforts we've made to make the city's public right-of-ways more accessible. So we invite and welcome yourselves and the public to learn more about our program. Thank you. I'm happy to address any questions.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the graphics so that I'm a visual person, so to see the process of the request coming in and who it goes through and what it goes through I'm grateful for that. So thank you, particularly this slide, amazing, thank you. Now, can you please provide examples of the impacts of the sidewalk repair budget over the years and how it has affected your bureau?
Yes, absolutely. So the settlement is designated for a minimum annual commitment, as we've discussed, that increases over time. It started at 31 million, increased to 35.7 million in fiscal year 22-23, and will it increase again in fiscal year 27-28 to 41.2 million. Over the years, the mayor and council have funded the sidewalk repair program at a level that meets and/or exceeds the city's minimal annual commitment under the settlement. This has included resources across multiple city departments, as we discussed, that support the oversight and delivery of the program. In recent years, portions of the SRP budget dedicated to BSS and the proprietaries, as well as the rebate program, those for project construction delivery have reduced, while project delivery load on BOE has increased proportionally. In addition, over the years, the SRP has received cash infusions designated as acceleration funds in the city budget that are above and beyond the minimum annual commitment, and those have been designated for BOE to deliver. So accordingly, with these additional resources in fiscal year 23-24, the council added 11 positions to BOE to support the additional project load. As of today, 3 of the additional positions were not continued due to budget actions. An additional 2 are vacant and we're working to fill. And I'll note that beyond performing Willett's eligible work, BOE Sidewalk Repair Program has helped support other citywide sidewalk initiatives, although not with Willett's funding, but that has taken away some from our project delivery, including the effort for the public right-of-way assessment. In addition, the program continues to see increases in program records and litigation record requests that take away from project delivery capacity, as well as record numbers of excess request submissions that require a detailed and time-intensive review, although, they may be lower priority requests that we don't plan to be able to address for 10 or more years. And BOE, as a sidewalk repair program manager, will continue to work within the resources allocated by the mayor and council and request additional resources where needed to meet the minimum annual commitment. And, another thing I want to note is, there is confusion when folks hear sidewalk repair program. Sometimes, they feel that BOE or misunderstand that we're in charge of sidewalks in general or general requests that come in. So given that there isn't really another city resource available to direct them to, we do end up with a lot of work to help constituent understand and education that our program, unfortunately, cannot serve them. So we look forward to working with yourselves and others to help clarify and communicate the programs and options to the public. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And so for the folks in Pico Union, how would you answer that question to them of how the budget impacts your work? Could you simplify what you just shared? Tangibly, what does it mean for them? Slower times, faster times? When the budget is impacted down and up?
I think, this year's budget in particular had in the 23-24 budget, the Bureau of Engineering had recommended there was a $28 million acceleration funding that was allocated, and the city had asked BOE how we recommend that be spent. So we recommend about half of it stay within the sidewalk repair program and half of it be dedicated towards other purposes, including non-Willits related maintenance and sidewalk repairs and city facilities such as parks, police station, fire stations that didn't otherwise have, funding specified in the city budget. And that those fundings were swept under the last year's budget acts. And so I think, we're really just that, to folks to use the programs we do have for the access request program for individual mobility disabilities and the rebate program for those that are property owners that want to participate in cost sharing, that work to take advantage of our available programs.
Thank you. Mostly, and I asked it that way because we're trying to connect with our constituents of like where your tax dollars matter, and when your tax dollars aren't going to certain things, then that's why the quality of the quality of your living conditions are lower or higher. So that's why I asked, so that we can show them this and share this, the audio of this committee, so that they can learn. So that's why I asked it that way. Councilwoman Hutt, do you have a question? I have a few more, but I'll go to the civil engineer position. On the agenda, we have item 9, the motion to add a resolution authority for the civil engineer associate. Can you please provide more information about how this position will aid the sidewalk repair program?
Absolutely. So this position will specifically support the city's ADA coordinator of the pedestrian rights of way, who happens to be Mrs. Natalie Sparrow, to my right, increasing her capacity and the capacity of her office to better fulfill the duties detailed in the city's Willits Settlement Agreement. The large scope and scale of the responsibilities of the ADA coordinator necessitate that an additional qualified CASP, or California Certified Access Specialist, be dedicated to support the work. Specifically, this position will support the technical duties of the public right-of-way coordinator, which include establishing, disseminating, and enforcing standards and policies, investigating and responding to inquiries and complaints concerning access barriers, conducting on-site visits, field checks, and plan reviews, and providing citywide training and direction and technical assistance to staff. So these duties performed, although housed within the BOE, this position are applicable across the city's Department of Public Works, Department of Transportation, as well as other city departments and proprietaries completing work on the city's public right-of-way. It's not a one-person job. It's coordinating with the departments and really ensuring the city, helping set the policies, as well as ensure their proper implementation. And the settlement anticipates and allows the need for the ADA coordinator to have staff, and indicates that she may utilize staff or her designees to carry out the activities and obligations. Utilization of existing SRP staff is not adequate due to the lack of expertise, and doing so reduces their capacity to deliver the projects and bring those improvements so needed and weighted by our constituents. So the current lack of this public right-of-way capacity also may increase the city's legal risk in terms of non-compliance. So in these expenses are, these compliance are required and eligible for expenditure and credit under the Willits settlement.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Are all repairs credited under Willits?
No, it's repairs that are otherwise required by our projects or programs, such as DOT projects and signal improvements or pavement preservation done by the Bureau of Street Services. Those efforts cannot be credited towards the settlement. It's specifically, projects that are kind of designated for compliance with the settlement. We do report under the annual compliance report on the city's efforts citywide across all its programs to remediate pedestrian facilities. So those are reported but not counted towards our annual commitment.
Okay, thank you. Is there a way that we could go back to court and revisit and say we've done these things to get credit towards our obligation?
This is Natalie Sparrow speaking, council member. I can share a little bit of background on kind of I think my understanding of the reason for the restrictions in the settlement agreement. And I think maybe the city attorney's office could possibly speak a little bit further if desired. So the focus of the settlement agreement on the fixing of only certain barriers is representative of the city's obligations under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is to remediate existing barriers to access in the facilities as they were constructed when the ADA came into effect. When we initiate a new project, let's say an ATP, active transportation project, that's considered new construction under the ADA. And so that is already expected to comply. It wouldn't.
But it's expected to comply, but we don't get credit.
Exactly, because it's not removal of existing barriers under that baseline obligation. It's an optional project that the city is choosing to.
Proactive.
You got it. And so that's why, from my understanding, it's excluded in the settlement because it reflects kind of the ADA law and regulation as sort of separate.
Do we save data on those separate new projects? Are we saying, we have 25 new projects built in 23? Are we saving those?
So as part of the settlement obligations, Adina had spoken about the access and construction database. Under that portion of the settlement, we're required to be reporting on the new construction and alteration projects which impact pedestrian facilities. And so the program does gather data from DOT to understand what work they're doing on pedestrian facilities that improves them, but that isn't credited towards our minimum expenditure under Willits. The inventory and assessment, and then the asset management efforts, which are currently underway in BSS and BOE, will additionally support our ability to track the SRP work and then all the other project type work that collectively come together to make an impact on the pedestrian facilities.
But to make an impact, is that something that we could go back and revisit and say we're making an impact because we've done X? Or we don't have the,
defer to the
we don't
city
have the breadth
attorney's
of that.
office.
Okay.
Yeah, and whether
Thank you.
Yep.
I understand. I'm just trying to figure out how to get credit
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
for the work we do.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I have one last question before we get to the next item. Is around the asset management report. Can you give an overview of the origins of this report and what type of information the committee should expect to receive when it comes out?
Yes, I'm happy to. So back on October 23rd, 2023, the City Council authorized funding for a pedestrian facility inventory and assessment pilot program. According to the joint BOE-BSS report submitted in August of 2023, the pilot scope included researching available technologies, consulting with agency and private stakeholders to determine needs, identifying the types and technical specifications of pedestrian facilities to be inventoried, demonstrating technologies at designated locations, analyzing pilot assessment data, developing a uniform asset condition rating system, and results. Completing a citywide inventory and assessment would fulfill a recommendation from the November 17th, 2021 City Controller audit of the city sidewalk programs. This would determine the scope and scale of needed sidewalk repair throughout the city so that resources can be more effectively prioritized and contribute to the city's compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and for completion of an update of self-evaluation and transition plan required under the ADA. So BOE, in partnership with BSS, completed the pilot phase report and determined that there are new current technologies that can cost-effectively collect data on the location and condition of pedestrian facilities at a scale, and recommends proceeding with a citywide program. And we've incorporated these into our first assessment effort that we're currently kicking off that will inventory the DOT's central yard as well as the perimeter outside of and mile outside of other Olympic venues outside of DOT's central yard and Paralympic venues. This report further recommends and will recommend that the city adopt an asset management framework, including assigning roles and responsibilities for pedestrian facilities management, adopting a uniform asset condition rating system, and establishing a mechanism for ongoing data maintenance. We look forward to presenting that report in the near future.
Thank you. Can you just name me a couple of benefits you think we're gonna experience from this work?
I think it's going to help us have insight on what it requires to really have a holistic and complete pedestrian facility program. The components required really across the city, the different players and departments involved, and provides technical support, including an update to our damage severity to help implement those recommendations and facilitate all the city's efforts to be more accessible and remove sidewalk and pedestrian facility barriers.
Wonderful, thank you. And for I know we're considering item 3 today, the environmental impact report. Today, I'm not going to be recommending to move forward with all the recommended actions because there's still a need for more information, but can you please provide a brief background onto this item and the recommended action for this committee?
Sure. Good afternoon, council members. Richard Liu, Bureau of Engineering, joined with my colleagues at Bureau of Engineering, Environmental Management, and also City Attorney's Office if you have any specific questions. But back in 2019, we had a draft EIR circulated for the SRP. We've had public review for 157 days, held 7 public hearings, and received about 300 comments. We addressed the comments in the final EIR in April 2021. Changes in the final EIR did not result in substantially more severe significant impacts, so there was not a need to recirculate the EIR. 2021, the EIR was certified and subsequently challenged. The judgment in favor of the petitioner was on limited grounds. A draft recirculated EIR was published in June of 2024, and public comment was held again. In 2021, the EIR, we sent out emails to 2,200 stakeholders and received 31 comments. And here we are today to seek the council to reinstate the EIR, but first we need recommendation number 1 to move forward to request the city attorney's office to draft the ordinance to reinstate it.
Great, thank you so much. So we're gonna go ahead and move forward with some of these items, but I just want to lock in what we've heard so far from our 2 presentations, is that the City of LA has had a couple of sidewalk repair programs. One was run by BSS years ago when there was resources, and the funneling of the locations mostly came from working with the council office, mayor's office, and other stakeholders. And please surely correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to make sure that we've digested this correctly. The other sidewalk repair program is the sidewalk repair program that's implementing the Willits settlement. And through that route, there is 3 different opportunities to get something fixed. Either it's the city facility or the property owner rebate program or the disabled access request. And that's the one that goes through 311 and goes through a process, yes? Okay. And that the BSS program no longer functions because there's no resources put into it. And that right now the City of LA, the way that it's fixing its sidewalks is through the Willits settlement implementation. That's how we're fixing our sidewalks for the most part, correct? However, if you want to me to say that differently, then let me know.
Yeah, I think, there are programs and projects contributing across the city and in different ways through, grant, be it bridge projects or ATP projects, but
development as well, I think, okay.
But yeah, large, I think, a portion of the, and then remediating curb ramps associated with the pavement preservation program and otherwise. So I think it's, the largest piece dedicated to, pedestrian facility remediation.
Great. And can we all agree that we don't have right now a proactive program fixing the right of ways around sidewalks. That's no proactive. Okay, great. Thank you. Because we don't invest in it. That's why.
Correct.
Okay, great. Okay, so I have the following recommendations, and thank you everybody for being here. And again, this is the first of many conversations because we want to get down. I mean, me and my team and our colleagues want to get down to getting the city and all of us to a place where there's resources to do some of this. So for item 1, there will be no action since this is only a discussion item. Item 3, I recommend we adopt the recommendation number 1 to request the city attorney to prepare an ordinance to reinstate ordinance number 187,106, adding section 62.104.1 of Article 2 of Chapter 6 of the Municipal Code for reconsideration. For item 9, I recommend we adopt the motion as written. Colleagues, Councilwoman, can I get a second? Thank you.
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Espinoza. Can you please call the roll for these items?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilmember Padilla is currently absent. Councilmember Hutt.
Yes.
So 2 yeses, and these items are approved as you stated.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, colleagues, we will close with item 2. Mr. Espinoza, can you please read the item into the record?
Item number 2 states that the council may recess to closed session pursuant to Government Code sections 54956.9 D1, comma D2, comma and E2. There's numerous potential cases to confer with its legal counsel relative to and significant exposure to litigation concerning the case entitled Mark Willits et al. Versus the City of Los Angeles. United States District Court case number 10CV05782, and this matter arises out of the American with Disabilities Act, sidewalk repair settlement regarding the city's public right-of-way.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, there's information that needs to be discussed in closed session as it pertains to pending litigation. Therefore, I will move us to closed session so we can confer with our legal counsel. If you're not in the room for this item, please leave at this point in time, and we will call you back when we reconvene the meeting in open session.
So that all these people.
Yeah. Heck yeah, oh man.
Okay, we are back on air.
Wonderful. Mr. City Attorney, is there anything to report out from the closed session?
No reportable action was taken in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Costella Vega. Colleagues, I would like to continue this item to a later date to be determined. Mr. Espinoza, is there anything else before this committee?
No, the desk is clear.
Let's go. Thank you. This committee meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.